I can still remember the sound of the fork hitting the plate. That tiny metallic clink was the moment my life changed forever. We were halfway through dinner, me, my mom, and my dad, when he dropped his fork, pushed his chair back, and said in a voice I'd never heard before, "I can't do this anymore. I'm in love with someone else." At first, I thought he was joking. My dad, Mark Cole, was the kind of man who made bad jokes at dinner all the time. But the look in his eyes wasn't playful. It was distant, cold, final. My mom froze. Her hands trembled, and I could see tears forming even before she said a word. "Mark, what do you mean?" she whispered. He sighed. "I met someone, Sarah. I didn't plan for this to happen, but it did. I need to follow my heart." My heart, that's what he said. He stood up, grabbed his jacket, and walked toward the door like he was late for an appointment. I was 15, old enough to understand what was happening, but too young to understand why. I remember running after him, my voice cracking. "Dad, please don't go. I'll be better. I'll do whatever you want." He didn't even look back, just said, "You'll understand when you're older," and closed the door. That door might as well have been a coffin lid, because the man I called my father was gone that night. For days, my mom sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from her. She barely ate. I tried to make her laugh, tried to be strong, but I was angry too. Angry that she was hurting and he wasn't there to see it. A week later, I found out who she was. Her name was Tina, a woman from his office. They moved in together 3 towns away, and he didn't even bother to call. Not once. The years that followed felt like slow punishment. Mom took double shifts at the diner. Some nights she'd come home so tired her hands shook from carrying trays all day. She never complained, not once, but I could hear her crying through the walls when she thought I was asleep. I picked up a job at a garage after school to help with bills. Oil stains on my hands became normal. So did disappointment. Every holiday passed like a reminder of what we'd lost. On my 16th birthday, I stared at my phone all day. Nothing. Graduation came and went. No call, no text, not even a message on Facebook. It was like I'd become a stranger to him. When I got accepted into college, I couldn't afford to go. Mom tried to hide her tears, saying, "It's okay, honey. There's always next year." But I knew the truth. We couldn't pay tuition, and he refused to help. I called him once, just once. He picked up on the 3rd ring, sounding impatient. "Ethan, I've got my own family now. You're old enough to handle things." Then he hung up. That was the last time I heard his voice. For 10 long years, until the day he called again. And this time, he wasn't calling as a father. He was calling as a desperate man. It was a Thursday afternoon when my phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar, but something about it made me pause. When I answered, the voice was faint, trembling. "Ethan, it's your father." I froze. I hadn't heard that voice in a decade. He coughed weakly. "I know this is sudden, but I need your help. I'm in the hospital. Kidney failure. They said you might be a match." I didn't say anything at first, just silence. All the memories, him leaving, Mom's tears, the years of struggle, flashed in my mind like lightning. He went on, desperate now. "I know I wasn't there for you. I made mistakes, son. But please, help your old man out." My chest tightened. "Old man?" I repeated. "You weren't much of one when I needed you." He sighed. "Please, Ethan, I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm running out of time." I told him I'd think about it and hung up. My hands were shaking. That night I sat with my mom on the porch. The air smelled like rain. She listened quietly as I told her everything. When I finished, she didn't say much. She just stared at the horizon, then whispered, "You have a good heart, Ethan. Don't let his choices turn you bitter." I nodded, but deep down, bitterness was already there, coiled like a snake. The next day, curiosity got the best of me. I wanted to see what kind of life he'd been living while we were scraping by. So I drove to his neighborhood. 2-story house, fresh paint, white picket fence, A perfect life, the kind he once promised us. Through the living room window, I saw her, Tina, arranging flowers in a vase. Everything looked expensive, almost staged. And then I saw him, my father, sitting on the couch, gray hair, wearing a silk robe, flipping through a magazine. He looked smaller, weaker, but not repentant. When he looked up and saw me through the window, his face brightened. He waved like nothing had happened. I didn't wave back. Later that evening, his wife called me. Her voice was polite but firm. "Ethan, I know there's history, but Mark really needs this transplant. You're his only hope." I asked, "Did he tell you he left us with nothing? That he hung up when Mom needed him most?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "People change. Maybe they do, but my father never had. Still, something inside me wanted closure, so I agreed to get tested. At the hospital, when the nurse said I was a perfect match, my dad's eyes filled with tears. He reached for my hand. "I knew you'd come through, son. You've always had your mother's heart." Hearing that word, son, from him made me sick, because he'd forfeited that title years ago. I didn't answer, just looked at him lying there, surrounded by machines, while the woman he chose over us sat quietly in the corner, avoiding my eyes. That night I lay awake in my apartment, staring at the ceiling. I thought about my mom's hands, cracked from washing dishes, about all the times we ate cereal for dinner because it was all we could afford, and him, living comfortably, acting like he was the victim now. The next morning, the nurse called to confirm the surgery date. I told her I hadn't decided yet, because deep down, I already knew what I was going to do. And it wasn't what anyone expected. When I walked into his hospital room the next day, he smiled, weak but hopeful. "Did you think about it, son?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I did." He leaned forward, hands trembling. "So, you'll help me?" I took a deep breath. "No, Dad, I won't." The color drained from his face. "What? Ethan, you can't mean that." I met his eyes. "You left us, remember? You said you had your own family now, so why not ask them?" He shook his head, panic rising in his voice. "They're not a match. You're my only chance. Please, son, I'm begging you." Tears welled in his eyes, but I didn't feel satisfaction, just an ache I couldn't explain. "You had a chance to be in my life," I said, "to be there when Mom got sick, to show up when I graduated. You didn't. You made your choices. Now you live with them." He looked broken. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. "Ethan, I was wrong. I thought I could start over, but I lost everything that mattered. I wanted to feel pity, but I couldn't. Because when we needed him, he didn't even blink. He whispered almost to himself, 'I guess this is what I deserve.'" I stood up. My voice was calm, but my heart was pounding. "I forgive you, Dad, but forgiveness doesn't mean saving someone who never showed up to save me." I turned to leave, but before I reached the door, I paused. "You said people change. Maybe they do, but sometimes it's too late." He didn't reply, just closed his eyes, tears rolling down his cheeks. I walked out and never looked back. A week later, I got a call from one of his relatives. He didn't make it. I sat on my bed for a long time after that call. I wasn't angry. I wasn't happy either, just quiet. Because the truth is, when someone who hurt you finally faces their reckoning, it doesn't always feel like victory. It feels like a deep, painful silence. That night I went to see Mom. She was sitting on the porch again, sipping her tea. I told her he was gone. She didn't cry, just nodded slowly and said, "Then I hope he found peace." We sat there together, watching the sunset. The air felt lighter somehow, like a storm had finally passed. After a while, she looked at me and smiled softly. "You've turned out to be a good man, Ethan. He would have been proud." I looked at her and said, "Maybe, but I'm proud of the man you helped me become." She reached over and held my hand, and for the first time in years, I felt like that lost 15-year-old boy had finally found home again. Looking back now, I don't regret my choice. Sometimes life forces you to choose between kindness and self-respect. And I realized that day, I could forgive my father without sacrificing myself for him. I didn't let anger win, I just chose peace. And peace, I've learned, isn't about fixing the past. It's about refusing to let it control your future. Maybe karma did the rest, maybe it didn't. But in the end, I walked away with something far more valuable than his approval. I walked away with my dignity. Thanks for listening to my story. Some people say I should have helped him anyway. That family is family no matter what. But what do you think? Was I wrong for saying no? Or was it finally time he faced the consequences of his choices? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your thoughts. And if this story moved you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.